Pydantic AI's hook system lets you intercept lifecycle events through simple decorator registration. And the @hooksOnBeforeModelRequest decorator can be called with or without additional parameters. The hook receives a run context and a model request context, returning the context unchanged to allow the request to proceed. The first pattern registers a hook as a bare decorator, while the second pattern passes timeout equals 5, 0, to configure how long the hook may execute before a hook timeout error is raised. Both forms are registered on the same hooks instance, and the parameterized version demonstrates how decorators accept configuration at registration time.
#bare decorator. Hooks on before model request. Async def my hookdex request context. Return request context. Hash with parameters timeout tool filter. @hooks on before model request timeout equals 5, 0. Async def my timed hookdex request context. Return request context.
Hook decorators accept optional parameters like timeout and tools filters, letting you configure behavior per hook rather than globally. The bare decorator just registers a hook, but adding timeout equals 5, 0 gives the hook a deadline before Pydantic AI raises hook timeout error. This keeps timeout configuration in line with the hook definition instead of scattered across constructor quargs. Tool filtering works the same way, pass tools equals send email to target specific tool hooks. The trade-off is clarity at the call site versus bulk configuration via constructor, but per hook parameters make intent explicit when a single hook needs different behavior from others registered on the same event. Let's break it down line by line.
#bare decorator. Hooks on before model request.
Registers a callback handler for the before model request hook on the hooks object to be applied to the function define next.
Async def my hookdex request context.
Defines an async hook function named myHook that receives a context object and a request context as parameters.
Return request context.
Returns the request context variable to the caller.
Hash with parameters timeout tool filter. @hooks on before model request timeout equals 5, 0.
Registers a before model request hook with a 5-second timeout parameter.
Async def my timed hookdex request context.
Defines an async function named myTimedHook that takes CTX and request context as parameters.
Return request context.
Returns the request context object to the caller. The two patterns, bare decorator and parameterized, are the same hook registration point with different configuration strategies. The bare form just attaches a callback that receives CTX and request context, returns request context unchanged, and lets the request flow through. The parameterized form adds timeout equals 5, 0 or tools filtering at registration, giving that specific hook a deadline before hook timeout error fires or scoping it to particular tools. Both end up returning the same request context object. The design trade-off here is keeping intent inline with the hook definition rather than scattering timeout or tool scope across constructor quargs, which matters when one hook on the same event needs behavior different from the others.
The hook surrenders what it never held, and the uninvoked tool exceeds its timeout before arriving.